like the main question of the podcast. It's like yes and no. Like, yes, I think about it all the time. Like, could I be doing something that is more beneficial to the world? And like, I've always had that, you know, I mean, I was in college and I was like, I should be studying environmental science. Like, so I quit being an art major. And then like 2 days later, I went back to being an art major because I was just like, no, I have to do that. And so I think for me, there's like always that like ethical question of like, how do I, what's an ethical life? And then the other question of like actually what my brain needs to function as a human on a day-to-day basis is making art, and like I don't know how to do life without it. So I think about it, like I think about all the time, like, oh gosh, like what am I doing? This is so hard, and I spend all my money on, you know, Williamsburg paints and driving my artwork here and there and all the rest of it. And then, and like, you know, and then how many artists do we need? And if I'm not like that great, like am I just making more landfill? Like what's actually, you know, like, is the work I'm making meaningful to other people? And if it's not, then why am I making it? So there's all these questions, but then on the flip side, it's like every time I think about doing something else, I think I would just fall into some sort of deep depression. Like, what do I literally need to function? And even thinking about like, oh, you know, I could have been like a designer, right? And that could have been fun. And but
did your school have a design program too? Like I did. Okay.
No. But like, you know, but I realized like I just love that kind of free form imagine, like just like imagination, like actually putting imagination into like the forefront of how you live your life, because also my work is like not really research based or like, you know, it's like I think but yeah, so I think I don't know, it's like not an option to not make art, but I think about stopping all the time. So I guess it's like it's like both.
Yes. And do you share these things with your students, or is it like no, like?
Yeah, I tend to be really open with students. I mean, what I tell my students, that not all my students want to be artists. The ones that really do, I just tell them it's not easy. Like it's a difficult life, but at the same time, I guess I wouldn't have chosen anything else, because you know, it's even most of us have to have a kind of 9-to-5 job, or you know, but those moments in the studio, you know, it's just it's like nuggets of kind of pure freedom, and you know, it's like an alternative way to be and to function in the world. So yeah, I mean, I don't pretend like it's not hard. I tell them I still get rejections all the time, and
so many,
you know,
for me.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, rejections all the time, yeah, constantly. And then so I just tell them, if you really want to do it, you just have to be stubborn and devoted, and those are kind of the main qualities.
Yeah, stubborn, devoted. In a couple of conversations, it's come up where you need community of friends around you if you're going to continue doing it. You need a lot of fortitude, so being stubborn, and it helps to have funds. However, you can do that. Some people don't have to think about that part of it. But most of us do.
Yeah.
And even with that, like, we don't live in a meritocracy, and it's like cream's not always going to rise to the top. And how do you, I think for me at this point is how do I, the question is like, okay, I want to continue doing this. And I've gone through different iterations. I'm on a peak right now of like, yeah, this is working.
Yeah.
But yeah, how do I do this and also have a life that is conducive to it? which for me means like time to like go on a pontoon boat on the lake with my kids in the summer,
Mhm.
to hike with them, or time to just do like the admin, or time to apply for these like giant piles of money that I really need. Like how can I do that? And
Yeah.
yeah, I think that answer is different for everybody, but
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's tricky. I think, yeah, I mean, it is true that not the always the best rises to the top. I mean, I try to share that with students too, like, um, a lot work that sells isn't necessarily the best work, right? Like, it's like, I mean,
mm,
sometimes it is, you
yeah,
know, like yes, you know, um, I'm just trying to think of like a big artist, like Kara Walker's work will sell for a lot of money and she gets tons of museum exhibitions and she deserves it because she's an amazing artist, right? But that's
yeah,
not always, always
yeah,
the case. And and so yeah, I mean, it's like you have to have a way to support yourself, but then I also think to create work, we need that time to let things germinate, and I feel like I need a lot of time doing nothing, like unstructured time.
yeah.
Um and
And do you find that in the summer? Like, when do you find that as an academic?
yeah, I mean, usually it's the summer right now because I'm chair. I don't really have the summers in the same way. So but it's temporary. It's okay. I'll have like 4 more years of this and then hopefully I'll can go on, a sabbatical. Like I also know like um it's like this huge privilege to be able to have summers, or the option to take a sabbatical, or even just to live. I mean, obviously the country is like right now, you know, it's like
Brought,
yeah, pile. I was gonna say it's a pile of shit,
eviscerated?
but
Yeah,
but
that's fine too.
but like at the same time, we also like in our daily lives live in like relative safety, and which is also like a privilege. So even having the option to be like, I want more free time to do nothing, it's like um sometimes I feel like an asshole even thinking that, but um
I mean, and we are a little bit assholes.
yeah.
I think, yeah, I totally relate to that feeling. I think for me, it's complexified, which I don't know if you share this or not in some way, but it's complexified by having grown up in the evangelical church and frankly only left it like maybe 10 years ago. So that kind of idea of like and a woman in the South, like feeling like a jackass for like, I need time, and also a mother, and like there are all these reasons why we don't want to take up that space. Yeah, and I think that awareness, a lot of people don't have that awareness that you and I like of, oh yeah, that's an asshole thing to say, given like my brother is a retired police officer. Never did he kind of bemoan, should I get summers off or not? Like maybe that's why it like was an okay decision to leave my full-time academic job, because I've always kind of had this outsider like class stance that makes me like look at it kind of like a dog looks at like a weird sound, like cocks its ears and goes, huh. Yeah, yeah, in the broader perspective, maybe we are kind of assholes for ruminating on that stuff. But I think actually, I listened to a podcast called 1A, so I think maybe it's national, but Rihanna Giddens was on it, she was on in the Carolina Chocolate Drops. That anyway, she talks about the reason why she makes work, and perhaps like listen to it, but she says, yeah, I am a musician, and for those, do I vote? Yes. Do I call my senators? Yes. In those 2 hours where people who also do the same need 2 hours to listen to music and kind of have a softer place,
Mhm.
that is also my role. And it connected with me. She said it in a way that made me think, oh yeah, okay,
Yeah.
what we're doing, people love to see things that are engaging and visual, and
Yeah.
maybe people don't always want to think about said things, but
Yeah. I mean, also, I do think in a way, and maybe this is, extreme rationalization, but I honestly think about this too, like, um, that maybe having, like, the way that artists are often people that are, introverts, they want a lot of time alone. They like this time to just do nothing, ruminate, let their imagination or their thoughts just kind of cycle through. Or like I tell my students to like lay on the floor and look at the ceiling, like
Mm,
those moments, like it is offering an alternative to this like hyper productive,
yeah.
the idea that production equals worth.
Worth.
And
Yeah.
I think that our culture is so kind of focused on that maybe also that's why we feel guilty, like, oh, I should, I'm not like producing, or I'm not being a productive member of society, or, is it okay just to sit here and daydream? But I like would argue that everyone should have more time for
Yeah.
that it could be, yeah, like an alternative way of, being or something.
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
I don't know.
Is that kind of cultural movement kind of made a voice that's been made amplified by Black women's voices called the NAP ministry. Basically about that, like we I don't want to like co-opt women of color, especially their voices, and my need as a white lady to need a nap. I'm not equating those two things, but
Hey,
um,
we all have
but
hormonal
it
changes.
applies. Yeah, we do need. Um, I think the impulse of that is like, in order to be a strong advocate for others, which women kind of fall into that caregiving category, no matter what, like it looks like you have to like, do that, take care of yourself. And sometimes you can't, sometimes you're like sharing an apartment for 4 years straight, and it's like, okay, I'll get to that in 5 years or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
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 Yeah. I mean,
So in environmental, what was that? So I guess two questions, if you don't mind. Like, I'm adding more questions.
yes.
What was it about did you grow up on the coast? So were you like, oh, I want to be a marine biologist, or
No, well, I grew up in New Jersey.
so yeah, it's
And
coastal to me. Like I come from Arkansas, so
but
that's
I was in college. Uh I entered college in 1987, and so climate change, global warming, we were all thinking about that. And um
oh, not all of us.
um and yeah, I felt like um okay, like I always wanted to be an artist, my whole entire life, and going to art school was all I ever wanted to do. And so I was in art school, and I was just, but yeah, I had, I don't know, I was 18 or 19 or whatever, and I was like, what am I doing in the world? Like, we're having this environmental crisis, and I could be developing, or developing technologies or researching ways to help the environment, um, and do something to, like, this is what feels most important to me, because it's like everything, right? If we don't have an earth, we don't have food, we don't have anything. And so yeah, so that felt like really important. But then I just felt like in my gut that I
2
would.
days later, I love it. That's such a college too. Like those 2 days of like,
Yeah, I know. And
do
then
you?
I was just like, I can't. I was like, I have to be an artist, I have to do
Yeah.
it. So
But I mean, I could see, I mean, not directly related, but the way that you think about materiality, and the way that you being a painter, but that kind of has expanded to include like all these other, like even collaborations with dance. And that feels like it kind of snuck in there, you know? that peeking above your cubicle of art and going, oh, okay, what this larger world is also something that's worth connecting to or something. It
Yeah.
feels I can kind of see that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm looking at this like biomorphic form behind you that's
Yeah.
stunning.
I
Yeah.
mean, you know, I don't know. I don't use, you know, acrylics paint because I don't want to use plastic, but you know, I do a million things that aren't. I mean, I'm just making more, you know, making more stuff. But you know, I mean, yeah, I think yeah, a couple years ago I was having like another existential crisis of like, oh gosh, like do I want to be an artist? Do I want to be in academia? And I was thinking about like landscape architecture. I like being outside. I like being in like gardening or working with plants. And I was like, landscape architecture would be great because you can do things that are like help the environment, right? Like help like flooding and help erosion, but it's also like design oriented. And I was
Yeah.
like, maybe I should have been a landscape architect.
Yeah. Yeah. That isn't one I've thought of, but it's that'd be so great. I mean, I can kind of like um make it much glossier than it probably is, but yeah.
I know we also romanticize other things, and I do think like, wow, a lot of people would love to have a studio and
Yeah.
paint.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah. I mean, hopefully in the best moments, things like that, not this like little podcast but maybe like a broader, I just think like this transparency is with boundaries is
yeah,
so helpful. Like I
yeah,
hope it's helpful in some ways. Not that that's the only reason to have an art practice is to be helpful, but I do in my most positive moments, I think, yeah, it'd be cool for someone, a young artist, to listen to you saying, like, look at your website or see your work at a show. These like hugely invested in sculptures and big like silk kind of tapestry like paintings and think, oh yeah, they're also considering other things. Like
yeah.
I feel like that there's nothing in that is, to me, that doesn't diminish the thought and the commitment to the work. I think that 50 years ago it did. Like the conversation was like, you do this, you make the work, you probably have a wife taking care of your children. You're, you know,
Or
um,
your wife is like Elaine de Kooning and she's an artist and she has a job and supports you and
does that and makes her work.
yeah,
Yes.
and making her paintings. But yeah, I mean, I think it's like deep in my consciousness, right? Like I know I'm doing the right thing.
You
Like
are.
I being an artist and making my work, like I can feel it. Like